Alright, hi everybody, this is Bruce with the Epic Experiment and Garbage Are Great, and I'm back, and this week I wanted to do something a little bit different. I've done a lot of deck techs here on the channel and had a chance to showcase a lot of the decks that I have built and that I play on a semi-regular basis. Obviously, with the number of decks that I have built and showcased, like all of them that I have built here on paper are decks that I have piloted and I have played. So to get to that point where you've got that many decks, you obviously need to have some sort of process by which you sort of get there. So I wanted to sort of talk my process of how I build decks, sort of in the process of collecting everything to make sure that I get all the key pieces. And I think that is kind of an interesting conversation. I don't know if other players have got a similar process or not. This is what works for me, and maybe some of you will see that reflected in the way you build. Maybe you guys, somebody else out there gets a inspiration and will spend, a manic night or two building a deck and they're so proud of it. Or maybe you're somebody who takes a longer time. I'm somebody where it takes a long time, but I've got lots of different ideas going all at the same time. Before me here are 9 decks in various states of completion. All right, I will talk you sort of through the process, okay? So the down here, the bottom 4, so Stiltskin, Nekusar, Meriadoc, and then this pile. This is a red-black deck of unknown commander yet. These are all cards that I would like to build into a deck, and some of them are far more coherent than others. For instance, Stiltskin Moogle Merchant. That is something where there is definitely a plan that I'm going to be building with Stiltskin Moogle Merchant. This deck is ostensibly for my son, who really wants to play this sort of goofy deck where he wants to give away miserable permanents to his opponents, and this is what we're doing. So we've been in the process of collecting cards. You can see we've only got about 20 or so there in our deck. Nekusar is another one that I would like to build, but I've only got a couple of cards to start, and I have a Nekusar, and I'm like, hey, you know what? I'd like to try and build this classic commander that's sort of been a boogeyman for a long time. I don't think it's particularly good anymore, but there was a time when Nekusar was a very strong commander, and people really liked to play it. Meanwhile, I have, right now it's Meriadoc. It doesn't have to be Meriadoc, but all the cards in here are all food-related. So maybe I look to build a food-related deck. And so I've sort of collected the cards that all say food on it. So Meriadoc right through till the Unlucky Cabbage Merchant from Avatar, and Spider-Ham, Peter Porker from the Spider-Man set. They all have something pertaining to food. And then last but not least, we have a collection of black and red cards. So obviously some sort of sacrifice theme when you have a Mayhem Devil there, and you've got a whole bunch of other things. This one's an undetermined commander yet at this point, but that's sort of still very much in a concept phase. So we've gone from a commander, like we know the direction we're taking this one here. We're just starting this one here, and these two are kind of unknown commodities where I'm starting to collect cards. Once I got to that point, and I really know what direction I'm headed in, I start really sifting through my collection and building the cards, or pulling out the cards for decks that I want to build. So Borborygg Most Enraged and Shauna Rebecca Agents are both 2 commanders that I've been sort of collecting the pieces here and there as we go to try and make sure that I get what I want. Now, this is not by any stretch of the imagination a fixed list. There's nothing absolute where I have this is just a collection, and it's much further along. It's a much further developed collection. And Shauna Rebecca, same sort of thing. These are both far more advanced there's a game plan that I'm looking to implement. But I'm still in the process of collecting cards that are going to go into that game plan. There could be all sorts of things. So the Borborygg Most one, I'm really looking forward to trying to pull Primal Surge, right? That's kind of what I want to do. And there's a lot, you can see there's a plan here. You got some different things to do. And Borborygg Most is kind of a fun commander. It's one of the ones that I saw early on when I returned to the game from Gate Crash, and I have sort of panned it at this point, but I think I'm at a stage in my playing career where an 8-mana commander is an interesting challenge for me to play. Shauna Rebecca is from the Assassin's Creed collection, and so it is also a little bit of a, but you can see it's a little bit more along the lines of there are some cool pieces in here that I wanted to play. I'm not sure where they all go necessarily in this band color pie, but that's kind of where I'm taking it. So some sort of banty colored thing leaning into Shauna Rebecca as a way to get that done. So those two are much more further along. You can see if you can the piles are much more developed than the other 4 down below. Above that would be decks that I've laid out a curve, and now more so than like actually selecting cards, I'm in the process of actually cutting cards. So these are probably about 120 cards per stack, and I'm in the process of having to whittle down to cards that I really absolutely want to have. So Sinar, Unfinished Genius, Aziza, Mage Tower Captain, and Ketramos, the New Dawn. These are much more further developed in terms of their thoughts and what they are going to be looking like as their final form. I definitely have a curve. I've got an idea. I've got a game plan. I've even got win conditions that I want to implement. Those decks are fairly firmly developed, but I now am in the process of weeding out what I need to do. Now, the whole process to go from this bottom row to the middle to the top, for many decks that I have, it literally it probably takes me a month or 6 weeks, maybe more in some of these cases, to collect the things I want to find, because I never sit down and manically do it all at once. And with this many different ideas going all at any one time, it is very difficult to just sit down and concentrate on a singular deck and to get it to the point of completion. As each one nears closer, yes, there will be a stage where I invest quite a period of time into any one of the decks. But that is, a slow process. And it's been a process that I've had for a while. I don't think it's been as clearly defined as it sort of is right at this moment, where I looked at these 9 decks and I'm like, there is definitely different phases here. There isn't a phase beyond this. All right. So once I pare these down, I get to the 63 or 64 cards I want to play. Then what I will do, the deck is not complete yet. Even if I have the deck built, the next piece will be putting together assembling the mana in order to get that to work. Whether it's basics or it's lands that are create multiple land types. How am I going to build the mana base is the next stage, and these ones are not quite there yet. I don't have any deck currently in that stage. Once you get beyond like the 60 some odd cards you're going to play, that next step happens pretty promptly, and they sort of go hand in hand. And then beyond that, they're sleeved and they're in a deck box, so that I know. And once they're in a deck box, and only once they're in a deck box, am I going to decide, yeah, this is complete, I'm ready to play. All right. And if it's not in a deck box, and it's not sleeved up in a sleeve of a common color, I'm not going to declare it fit. Right. So right now, Sinar's got, you might see some cards in different colored sleeves. Many of them are in perfect fits, just to make sure that I don't end up in a situation where they get dinged and hurt and damaged and ruined, because I do have children. But it's not a uniform deck ready to rock and roll yet. So I'm going to make sure they have a deck box, and I much prefer having a deck box. It could be something as simple as this, where I've got this one from Ultra Pro from years ago. This one's from Gamegenic. This is far more recent. But once it's in a deck box, then I will go and ultimately declare that it is fit to go and ready to be played. But not until it's in a deck box, because if I stash them in a long box or in some sort of other storage container, I am apt to misplace them, and if they're out of sight, they're out of mind, and I'm much more apt to not play them. Which, considering how much time and energy goes into building anything, that would be a real shame to basically misplace the deck and not be able to play it very readily. So I have discovered that I really do better when they're in a deck box that I can see on my shelf and go pull them off, rather than having them in a long box or in a, some other container that I can't see, right? So I really enjoy the Gamegenic ones because I can actually like look at the commander and say, oh yeah, that's my commander. It's Abigail. I'm going to play that one. I also label all of them on top so that, if I'm looking down from above in order to bag, I can go and ascertain what's exactly in the deck box without having to go fish too hard. Again, so that's sort of my process. I don't think anybody wants to see me lay it out by curve. That's, maybe a video for another day. To help me in the process of assembling all the cards, and I have a sorting tray on a table off here to my right. You can't see it off camera, and I'm not going to show it to you because it's called kind of a mess. But I sort my cards and decks all over there. In addition to other things, I've got a couple slots for basic lands that I want to play. I've got spots for interesting artifacts or interesting enchantments and interesting things, things I need to sort that way. And then to try and help me keep my thought process organized. Like many of us, there's cards that now proceed to spill out out of my collection all over the place. But I'm trying to keep myself increasingly organized so that the process is made easier just by being able to go and look in one place for cards for the next deck that I'm building. The dilemma I run into is that what I should be doing probably is that there are decks that I built. I've probably got 50 built at this point. I've done deck techs for many of them. To add another 9 is another daunting prospect. I should probably be disassembling some of the decks that I play very, very sparingly, with an eye towards reintegrating the pieces into my collection and then reusing them in some of these decks. Because I'm sure there are decks that meet some of these color configurations that I could replay. I could reuse the Sol Rings, the Arcane Signets, the ramp pieces, the dorks, all of that. I could reuse those things in some of these decks and put them to good use. That is a whole nother project that I may undertake actually this summer. I may have an opportunity to dismantle some decks that I'm not playing very readily. I still have the lists here on Moxfield. I will have the lists available to all of you. And should I ever decide that I want to take it upon myself to rebuild the list, I can go pull the cards and do it again. But that's sort of my process that I have for building my decks. And there's kind of a 4-stage process. Find the cards, get my stack, and then work on a curve, and then sleeve it and box it and ready to go. So, I don't know if other people have got a process that they also follow that's sort of in those stages, or if they've got people, or everyone else just sort of does it sort of on an ad hoc basis. I don't know. I'd be interested to hear what other people have as a process, because I think one of these things that when people talk about brewing decks and building things is that there's no set way to do it, and that maybe when we compare notes, then people can find new ways of doing that to help people get better at the process. You may notice that throughout my discussion here, I have very rarely actually discussed the fact that using EDHREC or other online databases, I'm not going to say I don't use EDHREC. I do use EDHREC to support what I do, but it's not where I start, right? What I start with is I start looking in my collection for cards that maybe I think play well with my commander. And then once I've collected my cards, I will go back to EDHREC and look to, is there anything I obviously missed? And that is a piece I think that is pertinent because, like any of us, we're all human. We make mistakes. There's things we forget or overlook or whatever. And so I would like to make sure that if there's something that's really obvious, I would like to make sure that I've included it. Now, in many instances, the things are the most obvious things are also the most expensive things. And maybe that's why I'm not playing it, because, if you can't have a million Smothering Tithes or One Rings or whatever else, I can proxy them in, and sometimes I do. But frequently I, will try and find an alternative to play those cards that would also match the theme and scope of the deck, which I think also makes the deck a little more interesting because there are, some variety. You're not always seeing all the best cards and all the best, tools that are out there. That some of them are very expensive. So, anyway, that's for me. That's how my process is, and I'm hoping people engage and have a bit of a conversation, because I'd be very much interested in hearing what other people do to try and make their deck construction interesting or streamlined, or make sure that they don't forget something. So, let me know down below in the comments. Let me know if you have got a process that you follow. Let me know if there's any practices that help keep you on track. And maybe through sharing some ideas, we can help make everyone a little bit better at building our next deck, so that the process is a little bit easier and our deck's a little more cohesive. Anyway, that's all for me tonight, folks. Thank you very much for stopping by, and have yourself a great night. Thank you. Bye.